Let's kick off with Sara Akbar, Chairperson and the CEO of OiLSERV Kuwait, based in Kuwait, which of course has been very much at the front lines, as much of the Gulf states have, to the Iranian retaliation. Perhaps, Sara, you could just start by giving us a sense, first, of the general lie of the land there in Kuwait, this 3 days now into the fourth day of this war. What's the mood there? What's the feeling? Are people moving around? Are people hunkered down at home? And then we can get on to the oil industry.
Good morning, and glad to be back on the podcast. Well, in Kuwait, of course, because Kuwait is a small country. So basically, if you are under attack like it is now, I think the people's worry is genuine and real because, the amount of missiles and drones that are receiving. So almost the sirens are on all the time, almost, because in the day you have like 6, 7 times or maybe more than that, the sirens going on, and you can hear the attacks, some big hit sounds going on. And so far, the preparations that were done is really working because we managed to get most of the drones and missiles, and the places that were hit are few. And, it's on those targets, for example, the airbase that has been severely attacked, and, there was hits on towards the American embassy, which is in the heart of a residential area. So people are really worried, but there is movement. People go out. It is Ramadan, and you feel the tension is there all the time. People only talk about this thing, and so the situation, we don't feel it. It's the same like in 2003 when we were attacked by the Iraqi missiles. And of course, we can't. It is February. February for us is the month that we celebrate the liberation of Kuwait. So it's right after our liberation day. So that's what can I say? It's really an experience.
It sounds familiar. Obviously, it sounds even like you're having a much more substantial exposure to the conflict than we are down here in the south end of the Gulf. But looking at the oil story, Sara, while we have some options here in the UAE to move oil out of the country through Fujairah, there's pipelines in Saudi that they can take oil to the Red Sea and so on. Kuwait has little option but to go out through the Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. What's the outlook for the Kuwaiti oil industry at this time when it looks like very little is trafficking out of the Straits of Hormuz?
Yeah. So, we have, because this scenario was always discussed. We knew Strait of Hormuz closure has been something that been in the scenarios for a long time. So Kuwait has some storage outside of the Gulf, so that I think will come into play. But actually, if you remember in the 80s when there was this Iraq-Iran war, our tankers were always targets, and we had this big issue with changing the flags and stuff like that. But at this point in time, I think if you change your flag, even worse. So the reality is we are prepared to go down on production to the limits where, very little can go out. But yes, genuinely, it is true. I think the only 3 countries that has no exit, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq. These are the 3 countries that have no exit through the Gulf if Strait of Hormuz is closed, and these are the countries that are really stuck. I think Iraq has some exit through Turkey, but most of their export is from the south. So yeah, these countries will genuinely have to shut down production if this thing escalates even further, because you have no choice. What can you do? That's why I think the issue of the LNG now is severe because Qatar and the LNG tankers and Qatar production. I mean, this is the most immediate impact that we have seen in the market on the LNG market.
It certainly, I mean, the words yesterday from Trump that he sees this as 4 weeks plus kind of conflict, Sarah. The From an industry point of view, and if Kuwait has to start shutting in production, how quickly can that technically happen? What are the sort of long-term ramifications of that at a time when Kuwait was actually not only, it's OPEC Plus just announced 2 days ago that everybody could increase their quotas. You're on mute, Sarah.
Yeah, the other thing I think we didn't talk about before I go to the question
Please.
is the insurance. Insurance is the biggest thing here now because many insurance companies are actually refusing to continue the insurance on the ships that come into the Gulf, both the oil and gas and the goods. In this part of the world, we
Container
actually
shipping,
import.
food.
Yeah, we import a lot of things from the outside. So, and that's the scary part. So, three things the government of Kuwait look at this point that to secure. One, of course, is the actual security, but the second thing is food security and water security. These are the biggest thing for us for survival. And, we have plans and they have been activated, these emergency plans for food and water. And, typically they would work for a whole year. You can survive for a whole year without needing to do much more. They have food piles and stuff like that. And we don't know how far is this going to go, for how long. So that's why they activated the food security plans. But going back to the
Just
to
to
the
touch on the water security point. I mean, there's a
yeah,
lot of vulnerability in the desalination across the region. Does
absolutely.
Kuwait have that vulnerability?
Yes, of course. We actually desalinate all the water we drink is all from the sea. And for a long time, the biggest threat we actually have, and still, I mean, this is now the highest alert for us, is this Bushehr plant that sits across the Gulf, the nuclear plant. And if this plant is hit in this operation, then we cannot use the water from the Gulf to drink. And this is existential for all the people who drink water from the Gulf. So that's the biggest actual threat to all these countries in the eastern part of the Gulf because we really have no water resources and this is the only water resource. So yeah, water security is the biggest thing. And we have, shallow water wells that we use in the north of Kuwait. We have a huge aquifer in North Kuwait that we can utilize. There is, a company, a Kuwaiti government company that holds the rights to that water, and they store water actually in that aquifer so that they can retrieve water if it's needed. But yes, the biggest issue for the Gulf at this point in time in this war is that nuclear plant that sits there like can wipe everything out. Anyhow, going back to the oil industry, I remember in 1990 when we had to close down and just like that immediately because export was shut and we had tanks, all the farms were half full. It took about 20 days to completely secure shutting down all the fields, and we were producing about 2 million barrels at that time. And we had to go manually close all the gathering stations and the wells and so on. But it took about 20 days. I think at this point in time, because the company is fully operational, that time the company was not fully operational. Now the company is fully operational, so it can be done fairly quickly and safely. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
like in 2 or 3 days, they can shut everything down.